Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of the podcast. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're trying to grow our channel, and as we continue on with the podcast, we want to start new forms of content. We want to start posting our work here on YouTube. So if you want to see some of that and continue supporting the podcast, please subscribe. Enjoy the episode. Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Exordia Creative Podcast. Oof, it's a Monday. Feeling good today, guys. I'm wearing some merch.
Yeah.
I'm wearing some merch today. I'm excited about it. We have a bunch of people that want to pre-order, that have pre-ordered, and there's still more rolling in.
Yeah.
So if you guys are interested, if you're watching or listening to the podcast and you want some merch, send us a DM on Instagram. Yeah.
Check it out there. Honestly, thank you so much to our friends, family, business contacts who have ordered.
Yeah.
Because I'm blown away by the demand.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah. So, it's one thing when people support you on Instagram or they like your posts or, you have their moral support. That's one thing. But to see everybody actually be down to buy our merch and support us in that way, it means so much to us.
Yeah.
So thank you so much to everybody.
Yeah.
Who's down.
And on that note, guys, oh man, we almost forgot.
Cheers.
Love it. All right. So yeah, merch is on the way. The last podcast episode, Jared was going off a little bit about our first sample order.
Right.
It was a fluke. It was a fluke.
Right.
That wasn't supposed to happen. So it was a one-off.
So check this out. I ordered a medium, and I just wanted to wear it for myself, test out the quality, see how it felt and looked and everything. It was nice, like we said, but way too small. So we've been pre-washing everything just so there are less discrepancies with people thinking they're a certain size, then taking it home, and then it shrinks because it's cotton and it has kind of picky care instructions. So we just wash it warm when we get it, so you know what you're in for. Anyway, it was way too small. Like, it was just uncomfortable taking it on and off.
I didn't even attempt it.
Yeah, we got more, and then I compared my first medium with my new medium, both washed, and it was like a night and day difference.
Wow.
So luckily it was just a one-off size discrepancy, and the rest are perfect. They fit a little snug, but regular sizing.
Yeah.
The first one was just ridiculous.
This is a large. And I typically like to wear larger stuff, not super tight. So anyway, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting. More to come on the merch front.
Yeah, and if you guys order the wrong size, just we'll return it for you. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, we'll figure out a workaround. So really quick fact for you. Mm-hmm. Before the podcast, I was doing a little bit of research about social media news, see what's going on in the world of social. And there was this crazy infographic of all the stuff that happens in 1 minute on social media. 1 minute on the internet. And there's some crazy stuff like consumers spend $1 million every minute. But this one was pretty nuts. 350,000 Instagram stories are posted per minute.
That's insane.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. And there was some other crazy stuff, but I just wanted to talk about that. And also the LinkedIn. LinkedIn posted a guideline on how to use the platform. Mm-hmm. My initial impression is that that's weird. I think that's weird, and it's kind of like I perceive it as a scream for help. So
do you think that because they're like, oh, you guys are using it wrong, that's why our platform sucks kind of thing?
I think they're saying that because nobody's really...
Dude, what did the guidelines say?
I have a couple hundred people on my LinkedIn or whatever. There's 5 people that post, or at least that I see.
Yeah. Right?
A lot of people are just going through LinkedIn and they're just kind of scrolling through it, really just not really engaging in the content. They're just there to look. Right. And so maybe what they're doing is they're putting out this guideline to be like, maybe they just don't know how to use it. So maybe they put that out, and that's what they're hoping to get from it is get more people active. Yeah. But
a lot of people use it to shop for jobs or to be recruited for jobs.
They do that.
So some people don't even have the intention of posting when they sign up.
Yeah, and to be fair, what I post is just what we post to Exordia. I just share it.
So what does the guideline suggest?
The guideline just basically gives you your best practices. So how many posts a day, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. What do they suggest? I didn't even look through it. I'm reading headlines and cutting to it.
Yeah, thanks, LinkedIn.
Yeah, thanks, LinkedIn. So what we can do, fine, we'll do a little extra homework. I will post in the description, I will put a URL to this article that I read about it.
Cool. So that's Microsoft's track record with social media.
Yeah.
And last week we talked about the TikTok acquisition.
I haven't heard anything else new about that.
No, neither have I. I think they're still in talks. September 15th is the deadline. We talked about how once the agreement is signed, there's going to be a lot more work behind the scenes to kind of transact that deal after. What do you think of the LinkedIn algorithm?
Dude, people don't see my stuff for days. And then all of a sudden, like 5 days in, people start to like engage with it.
There's not a lot of posting. The longevity of content is much longer.
Much longer. Yeah.
You'll be scrolling down your timeline and see something from 2 weeks ago.
I am a fan of the chronological timeline.
Yeah.
I miss it on Instagram. I miss it on every platform. I think it's the best way to do it. Because even when you're scrolling through Instagram, you look at a post, it's like, this was posted 13 hours ago.
Yeah.
Thanks. You know? Yeah, I'm a fan for chronological. It probably doesn't work as good for Facebook as a business and LinkedIn and all them as a business, but...
Well, it's about engagement, right?
Yeah.
They want to show you what you're most likely to engage with.
Yeah.
Chronological is cool because, like, logically it makes sense if you're trying to follow some kind of a story. It would be nice if you could have the option to toggle your feed
that'd be cool.
between them.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, I think, like, the AI knows what you're going to engage with more than you yourself know what you're going to engage with.
Yeah.
And I think they do that just to keep those clicks coming.
Yeah.
They've also changed recently the way that stories are presented on some accounts. Have you seen that? There's like a bigger stories panel now.
I don't think I've seen that. I've seen it when I'm scrolling through the feed, and I'll see stories in like the middle section, but I haven't seen that.
Okay, so you guys know how on the top horizontal bar of Instagram there's the stories, and it's only one row?
Yeah.
Well, now there's 2 rows on the new accounts, so you can see more, and you can actually expand it and have a full screen, kind of like a grid of all the circles and stories that you can check.
Really?
All at once, yeah.
I wonder if that's maybe I have to update my app.
Well, we've talked about before on the podcast. It's not an app update thing.
Okay. They're just rolling it out.
It's an A/B test, right?
Got it.
Instagram likes to take a lot of time with A/B tests.
Yeah.
So some accounts get features months.
Okay. So only some of our accounts have that.
Yeah, months before some of the other accounts.
Yeah. I wonder how they decide that. Is it by follow count? By geographical area?
I don't know. There's probably some like random distribution. Sometimes it's geographical. Like we were talking about Canada, how they don't show the likes. Right? We got that long before the U.S.
Yeah.
And now the whole world, to my knowledge, for the most part, you can't see likes. But some of our accounts, like the laggards, are still, you can still see it.
What's a laggard?
Like behind the curve. Like they lag toward the trend.
Okay.
So yeah, like we've had accounts now for maybe 6 months that haven't been showing likes, and I still have the one-off account where you can see everything.
Cool.
Interesting.
Cool. Well, this is kind of related to, well, it's more like tech news and stuff like that. Fortnite and Apple. You were talking to me about this over the weekend.
Yeah.
So if you want to dive into that, it's super interesting.
Right. Yeah. So we were talking about this over the weekend, and we watched the commercial.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant marketing. But basically, you guys all know Fortnite, super popular cloud-based game. I don't know if it's #1 in the world, but it hovers around those spots on the charts. And it's multi-platform. You can play it on any gaming system, PC, and mobile. So it's available from the App Store on your iPhone, on Android devices, super widely available. And anyway, there's a lot of in-app transactions in the game. So they sell like skins for your players and digital currency and stuff like that. And typically how the App Store works is all in-app transactions are facilitated through Apple. You have to use Apple Pay, and Apple, who owns the App Store, take a 30% cut. And that's actually similar on most platforms. Like on Google's App Store, it's around those margins. On gaming app stores like Steam is a popular one, it's around those margins. Anyway, Fortnite recently got fed up with this on the App Store and on the Google Play Store, which is the Android App Store equivalent. And they basically set up their in-game transactions in a way where they could circumvent Apple's radar and kind of slide under the radar and process their own transactions and not have to give Apple the cut.
Yeah.
Anyway, Apple's shot back was removing Fortnite from the App Store. So it's now gone.
Is it still gone?
Yes. And Google has done the same thing.
Wow.
So it was kind of a tit for tat. And then after that, Epic Games, which is the company that owns the game Fortnite, filed a lawsuit against Apple. And then a couple hours later, they filed a lawsuit against Google.
Crazy. It's
Right.
not in the App Store at all.
You looking for it?
I'm looking through it right now. It's not in the App Store.
Yeah.
They have some stuff, but it's not related to, well, it is related to Fortnite, but it's not from Fortnite. Fortnite wallpapers, blah, blah, blah. Crazy.
So what do you think?
Dude, we're of the age where the middleman is becoming less and less of a thing in some senses, right? And I think that Apple trying to play middleman and taking 30% of every transaction, I think that they've got to come up with a different way of doing it, because this is just going to be a, what do they call it? This is going to set a precedent. Say Fortnite wins this, okay? Then that means that a bunch of other people in the App Store and on the Google Play Store are going to say, hey, well, if Fortnite gets to do it, we get to do it too.
Right.
And we've seen it with direct-to-consumer purchasing and stuff like that, and I think that this is just the next wave of it.
Yeah.
I don't think Apple should be digging their hands into that. They should get a one-time fee, or they should have a monthly fee that they have to pay to the App Store, some other kind of subscription-based or something.
Right.
That's what I think.
That's Fortnite's argument.
Yeah.
And they're saying that Apple is being anti-competition.
Yeah.
And they have a monopolistic presence in the App Store. Because
Yeah.
there are really two main places in terms of market share where you can download apps.
Mm-hmm.
That's Apple's App Store, and that's Google's Google Play Store.
Yeah.
But it begs the question, does Apple not have the right to set their own rules in their App Store, which they own, which you voluntarily use by buying one of their iPhones, which they also own? You know what I mean?
It's kind of a monopoly.
Right, it is, but it's the Apple ecosystem is like a voluntary walled garden.
It is.
It is a walled garden,
Yeah.
and Apple devices and software don't necessarily play nicely with non-Apple devices, but it's mostly voluntary, you buying into their system, right? And Fortnite has done this before with Steam. They circumvented the Steam transaction fee, and I'm not sure how that worked, but anyway, as soon as it happened, Apple immediately kicked them out, and Google Play Store followed suit, and that's when they filed the lawsuit. This is, in my opinion, brilliant marketing, because they also released an ad spot, a campaign called Free Fortnite.
You're saying brilliant marketing on Fortnite's play.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this was definitely like a calculated effort. They had the ad ready to go as soon as they filed the lawsuit, so they wanted to kind of catch Apple by surprise, right?
Yeah.
And Google too. We watched the ad over the weekend. What did you think of it?
Powerful.
Yeah.
It was really powerful.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe I can start doing that. Start linking stuff in the description. Maybe we can put a link in the description. You guys can watch that commercial for yourself.
Or you can just Google Free Fortnite and you'll see it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like an Inception level parody.
Yeah.
So in 1984, Apple released a commercial when they first released the Macintosh computer, with reference to an old book called 1984 by George Orwell, which is kind of about like government thought control, and it was basically likening like PC users to kind of mindless drones who just listen to the status quo.
Yeah.
And then Apple with their new Macintosh is going to like break that barrier and let people be creative and be free thinkers. And that was Apple's commercial those years ago. And then Fortnite kind of did a spin-off of this commercial where they replaced the places, and Fortnite was the one liberating the Apple users, and they were saying Free Fortnite. That's their tagline.
Yeah.
So people are saying that Epic Games is weaponizing their fans against Apple, because obviously they're going to be very upset
Of course.
that they can't play the game on their devices, right?
So is that the case? So if it gets removed from the App Store, does it get removed from phones?
You can keep it until you have to update your phone, or until the game updates. So you can keep it for a couple of weeks, and then you're done.
Wow. I wonder how many people play on their phones and iPads versus on their consoles or computers.
I'm not sure. There are over 1 billion iPhone users.
Yeah.
And some, significant minority of them probably play the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff, and I have like a little theory on their strategy, because it's very interesting that they're suing both Apple and Google, but they're being very vocal about suing Apple and not so much about suing Google.
Yeah.
So notice that they didn't have a campaign against Google.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And if you look at their social media, they're really targeting Apple.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said about setting a precedent, I think maybe strategically that's probably what they're going to do, because Apple might be lower hanging fruit. No pun intended. Apple might be lower hanging fruit in terms of how easy it is to set precedent that the company's being anti-competition.
Yeah.
Because Apple is more of a walled garden, right?
Yep.
There's only one app store that you can buy things from on iPhones. and Apple owns the phone and they own the marketplace.
Yeah.
So I think it's easier to make a case there, whereas in the case of Google, the Google Play Store is the dominant one, but there's also like the Galaxy Store and places like that. So for example, if you have a Samsung Galaxy, you can still play Fortnite and circumvent the transaction fee on the Galaxy Store.
Yeah.
And Samsung's bragging about that now. So even though they've removed it from the Google Play Store, there's still a workaround.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they're going to focus on Apple, because Apple's kind of more of a divisive company than Google. It's hard to hate Google, at least in the way that I see the two companies. Apple's a more easier to hate, right? If you don't like it, it's more kind of divisive.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they establish a precedent with that case and then start being more aggressive to Google.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about how this stuff's going to play out.
Yeah.
Apple's clearly being really firm about it. I know Spotify is joining Epic Games in support. I don't know if they're filing a lawsuit as well.
Yeah.
But it's a similar thing. I mean, like, Apple is the gatekeeper to everything on the store. They've built the store, right? So it's tough to draw the line of what they do and don't have the right to do.
Yeah. I have something similar to that. Have you heard about the issue with John Deere, the tractor company?
No.
So there's been a lot of lawsuits going on over the last several years regarding John Deere. And the issue is that all the farmers that own John Deere cannot work on John Deeres when they break down. They have to bring them into a dealership.
Wow.
And then they have to do all this stuff. And the main thing that they're upset about, the main reason why John Deere doesn't want to let people work on it is because a lot of it is software based. And so they'd be allowing everybody to get into like the back end and all that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And so there's been hearings going on and all this kind of stuff. And guess who's been sitting in on the hearings?
Who?
Apple's legal team.
Really?
Because if John Deere allows this, then that means people can ask for their data from Apple as well. So this is another precedent case, potentially.
Right.
So there's like thousands of farmers that are suing John Deere saying, we want to be able to work on our machines because we have to spend $1,000 just to get our machine to John Deere for you to work on it. And then you have to reset the computers, blah, blah, blah. It's all this big thing.
Yeah.
So,
I had no idea about that. That's really interesting. So what happens if you were to tamper with the software? Does it void your warranty?
Yes.
Or that's what it does?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sure like they also say that it's very complicated and an average mechanic or whatever, a tractor mechanic can screw it up if they don't do something properly, whatever it is. And it also voids your warranty as well. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Spend $130,000 on a tractor, but you can't work on it yourself.
Yeah, that's kind of a straw man. That's not really a fair argument.
They've also said too that John Deere wants to treat it like a licensing agreement. Like you get the license to use John Deere on your farm. So they're going that route as well.
Right.
You don't actually own it.
Yeah.
You just pay the...
Yeah.
Anyway, so Apple's been sitting in on those hearings.
No, yeah. It's smart of them to do their due diligence, right, and see what's happening.
Yeah.
Right, I'm sure John Deere's doing like some legal acrobatics to figure out how to position their case where
Definitely.
the mechanics don't have the right to do it. That's very interesting because you'd think it's private property.
Yeah.
But if they can position it as it's a license that you rent, then that's different.
Yeah.
Right. We're seeing software as a service has blown up in the last 10 years.
Yep.
Right. Speaking of Apple, have you heard of Apple One?
Nope.
That's new. It's Apple's new bundled subscription service.
Ooh.
So they're gonna bundle like Apple has a lot of paid monthly subscriptions.
iCloud, Apple Music.
Such a profitable business model. I think it makes up 25 or so % of their revenue now.
Yeah, that's fat.
So it's significant, and it's easier to target people who aren't able to spend on the expensive MacBooks or the expensive iPhones. You know, you can have an old rusty iPhone, but if you're paying that monthly subscription for $10 for Apple Music, $10 for Apple Gaming, $10 for Apple News, and iCloud storage, and they have all these services. So they're bundling it into one thing, which is supposedly called Apple One.
Okay.
Not publicized yet.
Any pricing or anything? No.
I don't know. It's probably just going to be a slight discount from the cumulative total of what they would cost separately.
Interesting.
Yeah. But it's, speaking about Apple's walled garden ecosystem, joining is voluntary. However, they do create a lot of friction in making you want to leave, making you not want to leave.
I've heard horror stories.
Right, because if you get so invested in this system with your Apple Music and stuff like that, you're just not going to want to put in the time and effort to transition. And I think to a degree that's probably intentional.
I've even heard of people when they switch from an iPhone to a Google phone or a Samsung that they have trouble sending text messages.
Really?
Yeah. Like they have to reset it from like the higher ups, like somebody at your service provider has to like reset it or something.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
If you go from team iPhone to team Android, then Android makes it as seamless as possible to port over all your data, and they take everything from the cloud and transition it to Google's cloud services, and vice versa, because it's Apple's benefit to make transitioning into their ecosystem seamless.
Yeah.
And then vice versa, it's Android's benefit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think part of that is intentional, creating a lot of friction to make you not want to leave.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not as voluntary as Apple may claim once you're in there. Mm-hmm. So I just don't even want to think about that headache of having to transition.
No.
You know. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see Apple One pricing.
I'm still happy with the Apple products. I'm not like super amazed like I once was.
Right.
But I think it's because the novelty's kind of worn off. We're kind of hitting the plateau of where these phones can really go.
Yeah, maybe.
In a sense. I don't know. Still like my laptop. Apple Watch I wear for working out. AirPods are great. I think the AirPods was a brilliant move by them.
Yeah. A lot of people do make the claim that Apple's not innovating like they were. And here's the thing. For like the first 30 years of their company, they were innovating like crazy.
Yeah.
But to be fair, within the last 5 years, AirPods is enormous.
Yeah.
You know, that's a huge product win.
Yeah.
Apple Pay as a service, I think, is super innovative. They were the first ones to just tap your watch or just tap your phone.
So how does that work? Are the major banks paying Apple X amount per month or something? Like, how is Apple getting their check from that when I go and tap my phone? Do you know?
I think they have some kind of technology in the phone that acts similar to like your PIN in a bank card or in a debit card.
Yeah.
I don't know how the fees work. If anything, I would guess Apple probably paid a fee to Interact or the intermediary to make that work.
Okay.
Now they're partnering with banks. Like their big one was partnering with Goldman Sachs for that credit card.
Yeah.
I don't even know anybody with one.
An Apple
not that I
card?
ask everybody what credit card they use, but I don't know anybody who's
It'd be a cool novelty to have.
Yeah. I'm not sure how the perks are, or what the fees are, why you would join it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But Apple Pay, I think, is super innovative within the last 5 years. AirPods, insane.
Yep.
One of their best products, period.
For sure.
The Apple Watch is 6 years old?
Yeah. iPad is the best tablet.
Yeah. Now it's the most popular watch in the world.
Yeah.
So I'd argue that they're still innovating. But it's just really hard to compare with that turn of the century and 90s and 80s innovation that they were bringing to the table.
Yeah.
During the time when they released the 1984 commercial. Yep. Because they were truly the underdog then.
They were, which is crazy to think about, right?
And now they're worth $2 trillion in market cap.
Insane.
Yeah.
Crazy. So I know you don't want to join the competition with me, but I want to talk about it.
Right. You just ran this by me a couple minutes ago.
So Jordan Shelton, I think he listens to the podcast. He owns an agency. He was from Toronto, but he owns an agency out in LA, and we've been keeping in touch ever since we started Exordia.
Right.
And he just finished the 75 hard challenge. And basically what it is, I'm just pulling it up, guys, if you're watching.
Who created this challenge?
Great question. I don't see any recognition for who created it. But essentially what the 75 hard challenge is, you have to follow a diet, you have to do 2 45-minute workouts, no alcohol or cheat meals, take a progress picture, 1 gallon of water, 10 pages of reading per day. You have 24 hours to do all this for 75 days. And honestly, when I was DMing Jordan, and he actually wants to collaborate on something, we might do a podcast together or something. But anyway, he said the amount of mental clarity he got from following this has just been absolutely insane. And I really want to give it a shot. And I know you don't want to do it because you check most of these boxes. But I would really I want to get more consistent with all of these things. Yeah. And I'm wondering if a challenge is the way to do it or not. So I like throwing myself into this kind of stuff. So I think I'm going to be starting the 75 hard challenge. I'm going to set a day when I'm going to start.
I know you're into doing this, and if you say yes, I fully support you doing it. Do you want to put some pressure on yourself and commit on the podcast?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Done.
What day do I want to start? Okay, we're going to start tomorrow since we're already halfway through today.
Done.
Let's start fresh tomorrow.
All right.
This is going to be a nice little podcast topic. Every week we can talk about it. Yeah.
We're going to keep him accountable.
Yeah.
75 days.
All right,
just
perfect.
like that.
Perfect. We're doing it. So it's locked and loaded. All right, man. We can get into Belarus if you want.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
I'm not super informed on what's going on right now, but Belarus recently had an election, and allegedly the winning nominee had 80% support. And people are calling BS. People are saying, no way is that true. I'm not sure of the politician's name. He's been in power for 26 years now. People are saying Belarus is the last dictatorship in Europe, and it's time for him to step down and make change. He's rallying now. He's refusing to do a re-election. And there have been massive protests, peaceful protests.
Yeah.
But people are likening it to like a citizen revolution. So apparently almost 100,000 people are out in Minsk, in the capital.
Yep.
And they're protesting for a re-election or for him to step down. And it's really inspiring to see, you know, everybody dropping what they're doing for the greater good to come out in support of something. And I understand we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and you could argue, you know, against why you might not want to do it for health concerns. And as valid as that is, you know, these people are rallying for their freedom, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to weigh those priorities
definitely
before you go come at somebody for not respecting social distancing to the extent that they could.
Yeah.
So a lot of Western forces have established a military presence on the border of Belarus now, in case this situation escalates. Protesters are being peaceful right now. However, some of them have been detained. There have been at least 2 killings. There's been reports of some pretty bad beatings. So we're seeing on the fringes a little bit of escalation. Russia actually has offered Belarus military support on their end if this escalates. So Belarus and their supposed legitimate leader, is backed by Russia, whereas the people who are revolting are backed by Western forces, like some of the countries in the EU and possibly the US.
Yeah.
So this could potentially escalate pretty seriously.
And I just want to say one quick thing.
It's about all I know.
We had back in the 1920s, we had the Great Depression, right? And then right after that, there was a world war.
Right.
And I don't know if you look back in the history books, things repeat themselves.
Sure.
And absolutely. We're about to be we are going into, once this money dies out, we are probably going to be going into quite a recession, depression, whatever it's going to be. So I'm wondering if history is not going to repeat itself. We see this going on here. Last week, we talked about, what were we talking about? What country is that again? Lebanon. We were talking about Lebanon last week.
Right.
There's so much conflict going on. There's just such a recipe right now for some crazy stuff to go down and some big change to happen.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Wow.
There's a lot of tension going on right now. I think economically, this period reminds me a lot of the 1930 to 45 years.
How old were you then?
I forget.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, for the most part, preceded World War II.
Yeah.
So there are economic similarities there, but that's a good point that there are also a lot of social similarities, and tensions are mounting between the 2 big powers as well, between the US and China. Tensions are mounting as well.
Yep.
And who gets the upper hand at the end of this huge economic upheaval is to be decided right now.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, so this situation is evolving day by day in Belarus. The protests are still going on. This is apparently the largest turnout of people since the collapse of the Berlin Wall. So people are really serious about this. I'm not too versed on the background of the president or the prime minister or whatever he's called. and what exactly he's done, but it certainly begs the question why he's still there after 26 years.
It's a long time.
Yeah, that's inexcusable.
It's too long.
Right? For sure.
It's too long.
Right. And Russia's come to his aid and offered military support if needed.
Of course. Wow. All right. Well, we'll try and keep up with that story. We'll keep up with everything else we'll try to keep up with everything else that's going on. We're not a news podcast, but we like to talk on current events and stuff. So with that being said, guys, thank you very much for tuning into this week's episode of the podcast, and we'll see you next week.
Hard 75.